We know that self-love is important, but why is it so important? And how do you cultivate it so that you can really feel it, so that your life can be transformed in that love? That's what we'll be exploring with my guest, best-selling author, Dr. Margaret Paul. Welcome to Divine Feminine Voices, where we define and explore feminine consciousness. My guest today, Dr. Margaret Paul, is a best-selling author, popular MindBodyGreen writer, and co-creator of the powerful inner bonding self-healing process, as well as the related SelfQuest self-healing online program, which is recommended by actress Lindsay Wagner and singer Alanis Morrissette. Having appeared on numerous radio and television shows, including Oprah, she is the author of numerous books, such as Do I Have to Give Up Me to Be Loved by You? Holding a PhD in psychology, she is a relationship expert, public speaker, consultant, and an artist. She has successfully helped thousands and has taught classes and seminars for over 50 years. And welcome to our show. I'm so delighted to have you here today.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, you were a therapist for 17 years, right? And you said a prayer. You said you wanted something that was going to take the people you served a little deeper, a little faster. And
right.
Out of that, you created something really beautiful that takes us into self-love. So talk to us about why self-love is so important.
Well, there's many reasons, but if we're not at least emotionally loving ourselves, there's many levels of self-love. There's physical, taking care of our body, financial, but it's emotional, where people really don't know what to do. And if we're emotionally abandoning ourselves, which most of us have learned to do, we've learned to avoid our feelings, to avoid responsibility for them, to stay up in our head so that we don't feel in our body. We've learned to judge ourselves. We've learned to numb with various addictions. We've learned to make other people responsible for our sense of worth and our safety and our security. And when we do these things, we are actually rejecting and abandoning ourselves and making other people responsible for us. Well, when two people get together, and that's what they're doing, and we do attract people at our common level of self-abandonment or our common level of self-love. So when two people are abandoning themselves, they expect the other person to fill them up. They expect the other person to complete them and make them feel whole and safe and lovable and worthy. Well, they're both doing that, and they may feel like they're doing it at the beginning, but inevitably they're going to be disappointed because we don't actually have love to give somebody when we're not loving ourselves. We're always, when we're abandoning ourselves, we're always trying to get love, and we have no idea how to share love. We have no idea how to bring love in, fill ourselves with love to share. And so this is a huge issue in relationships, which I've been working with for over 50 years. And I see over and over that when people are not loving themselves, they ruin their relationships. And also they get stuck in their lives. When they're not loving themselves, they get stuck in all of their addictions, procrastination, they get stuck in their work. There's so many ways that they get stuck when they're not taking emotional responsibility. And that's really what loving themselves is on the emotional level. Most people have no idea how to do that because we didn't see people doing that.
It's really true. And we try all these other ways to fill ourselves up and they don't fill us.
No.
So we're constantly hungry.
Right.
It's like being starved.
Yeah. And so, I mean, obesity is a huge problem in this country. And with hunger, you want to fill it with something. So you might fill it with food, or you might fill it with drugs or television or other addictions, or see, the other thing that happens in relationships when we're making somebody else responsible is then we try and control them. And we try and control them with anger and blame and tears and being a victim, giving ourselves up, sacrificing ourselves, withdrawing as a form of punishment. And then, of course, we don't want to be controlled. Nobody likes to be controlled. So then we go into resistance. And that's what I see in the relationships that are having a lot of problems, is that they're trying to control each other and not be controlled to get the love that they're not giving to themselves. So obviously it becomes a huge problem when people don't know how to love themselves.
And your description of that self-abandonment is just so right on, because that's what happens internally, correct? We start feeling abandoned by the people around us, the circumstances around us, and really what you're describing is an abandonment going on within ourselves. Is that right? Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, that's right. And then what happens is that because we're feeling alone, we're feeling abandoned, we're feeling rejected because we're rejecting ourselves, we then project that out and feel like we're being abandoned by others, rejected by others, being left alone, being left out. We're leaving ourselves out. And it's so easy to project onto others how we're treating ourselves. And then people often treat us the way we're treating ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it gets validated that, oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough.
Yeah, and then we're just spiraling deeper and deeper. So I love that you were so committed to the people that you were working with that you wanted a different way, right? A different pathway for them. How did you get to the place of doing what you're doing? Go into that story for us, please.
Okay, well, like so many people, I came from a dysfunctional family. I was an only child, two narcissistic parents. My mother was a rageaholic. My father eventually became sexually abusive. I mean, I was really, really alone. By the time I was 5, I was a wreck, and my mother took me to a psychiatrist, of course, believing it was all my fault. And he talked to me and he talked to her, and then he talked to both of us, and he said, "Tell your mother not to yell at you." And I remember thinking, I'm only 5 years old. You tell her. And my next thought was, I can do a better job than you. And that was when I decided to do the work that I do. And as you said, I work as a traditional psychotherapist for 17 years, had tons of my own therapy, wasn't happy with any of it. And that's when I started to pray for a process that would work fast and work deep, that people could learn on their own. They wouldn't always have to run to a therapist. That's when I met Dr. Erica Chopich. Of course, we had to meet. She had half the process. I had half the process. Spirit came in and put it together into these fabulous 6-step of inner bonding, the 6 steps of inner bonding. So I've been doing that with myself for 35 years and teaching my clients to do it. And it's just amazing. It's really, really amazing what happens when you learn and follow these steps.
Well, clearly your purpose was carved out from, of course, when we come in, it's there, but it really got set for you at a young age. And then you took it and transformed the knowledge and wisdom that you had into something even more powerful that people could access. Oh, I love that. How has it transformed your life? How has it transformed the lives of people that you support, that you assist?
Yeah. So for my life, it completely transformed my life. I can't tell you it was easy, because at the time that I started to practice inner bonding, I was sick. I had been a sickly child. I had been eating well since I was in my early 20s, really trying to be healthy, and I had gotten pretty healthy. But at the time that inner bonding came in, I was sick again. I did not know why. And when I started to practice inner bonding, I realized I was a caretaker. I was taught to take care of everybody else, put myself aside, didn't know anything about my own feelings. My feelings weren't allowed. Everybody else was more important than me. You can only do that for so long before you get completely depleted, and I was. And so I knew if I continued to caretake everybody else and abandon myself, I was going to die. The doctors were saying your immune system is shutting down. And I finally figured out why, because of the self-abandonment. And I had to make 2 really, really important decisions at that point. One was that I was willing to be hurt because I was trying to protect against pain, like so many people do. And the second one was that I was willing to lose everybody else rather than continue to lose me, which meant that I had to start to love me and let the chips fall where they may. And I was really scared, because I was scared that the people, my husband, my kids, my parents who said they loved me, really didn't, that they loved what I gave them, but that they weren't going to support me in learning to love myself. And in fact, that's what happened. And so I lost my 30-year marriage. My children were mad at me, my 3 children, and my parents disowned me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was really, really hard. But I got me back. I got my health, I got my vitality, I got my creativity, and I got my ability to manifest my work and the things that were really important to me. It was a really hard time, but I would do it again because otherwise I know I would have died. I know my immune system would just kept shutting down. So I really didn't have a choice. And it completely changed my life to one. I think it was the first time I ever started to feel joy, even in the midst of all the grief. I started to feel the joy of love coming into my heart and soul. I started to be able to do something that I had wanted to do for a long time, which is what I call at-will divine connection, which is to be able to access my higher guidance anytime I wanted. I had been trying for a long time to do that, and I couldn't find the secret to that until I started to practice inner bonding. And then I finally put the dots together, and I was able to achieve that at-will divine connection, which has made all the difference in the world in my life. Because the fact is, we can't look around for role models for loving ourselves because there are so few people. You know, my parents weren't role models at all, and most people had parents who weren't. So our higher self, whatever that is for a person, our higher guidance has to become the role model, because we don't have to know. We can't know what's loving in any given moment to ourselves. And so I ask all day long, well, what's loving to me now? What's loving to me now? And I get the answers and I do it. And that makes all the difference in the world.
Oh, I love what you're describing because that's what we seek, right? We want this deep, profound connection with the divine. We want to feel that love. We may be scared to death of it, but we want it. Mm-hmm. And I love that you've created a process that allows people to discover how to make that connection.
That's right.
How to experience it, how to experience self-love.
Oh. And I see with the people that I work with tens of thousands of people around the world, that when they practice the process, their life changes so fast, and they are able to have that divine connection, which is astounding to them. I mean, I get emails every day about how life-changing this is for them, with themselves, their health, their work, their relationships, their kids. Everything changes when they learn to love themselves. Now, I mean, sometimes it's hard for them, like it was for me, but most of the time, their relationships actually get a lot better.
Mm. And definitely the one that counts the most, you with your creator. When that's in place, everything else falls into place.
Yes.
Yeah,
oh, that's great too. When you're really in alignment with your soul, and you're in alignment with your higher guidance, your higher soul, your inner soul and your higher soul, life works well. Not that there aren't challenges. There's always, this is life, life can be challenging. It is challenging, but we learn how to manage it. I never learned how to manage pain when I was growing up. My parents had no idea how to manage pain. And so most people have no idea, and they want to protect against pain because they don't know what to do with it. But with inner bonding, you learn how to lovingly not only manage the pain of life, like the loneliness and the grief and the heartbreak and the helplessness over other people and situations, but you learn how to learn what your feelings are telling you. Our feelings, all of our feelings, have information for us. And what most people don't realize is that they're creating a lot of their pain, like a lot of their anxiety, depression, guilt, shame, anger, aloneness, emptiness, jealousy. They're creating with their self-abandonment, and they don't realize that they're creating it. So then they turn to more food or more drugs or something to keep a lid on those feelings instead of learning from them. So inner bonding is a 6-step process that teaches you how to learn from your feelings, how to connect with your guidance, how to bring love into your heart and soul, and what kind of loving actions you need to take for yourself.
Yeah, this is really gold, this concept that you're speaking to, because we do go into this avoidance of those painful things. We don't realize that is the act of self-abandonment, is saying, well, you don't matter, you don't count, you're not comfortable. And that is some wounded part of us.
Right.
Screaming for our love, screaming for divine love.
Well, that's right. That's right. And it's this wounded part of us, this ego wounded self, that learns all of these addictions and protections and forms of control to try to feel safe, which we all learned as we were growing up as part of our survival. But now, all of those ways that we learn, they're hurting us very deeply. They're hurting our relationships. They're hurting our heart and soul. They're making us feel all that emptiness and anxiety. I mean, look at how many people feel anxious and depressed around the world.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And they don't realize that they're causing most of it.
Yes. And that is that self-responsibility piece, that moment when you say, wait a minute, I am the captain of my ship. I am. And this I can affect. I can make a difference here.
Yeah, and one of the basis of the inner bonding process, the basis, is actually a concept of intention. And that is that any given moment, our intention is either to protect against pain with various forms of controlling behavior, or our intention is to learn to love ourselves and share our love with others. And so this is not like a decision we just make and we've made it forever. It's any given moment. It's a moment by moment decision. And most people have learned to protect, to control, to avoid automatically. That's in that ego wounded self. And so if we're not conscious of our intention, we're going to automatically go into that reactive, protective, controlling behavior. But with inner bonding, people actually start to create new neural pathways in their brain for a new way of being. And this is what we call the loving adult. The loving adult is who we are when we're actually making a conscious choice of our intention, a choice to be loving to ourselves, a choice to learn to be loving to ourselves and loving to others, sharing that love with others. And so as people go through the steps of inner bonding and practice them over a period of time, and of course, anything worth learning takes practice, they develop new neural pathways in the brain for the loving adult, because the ego wounded self is in the lower part of the brain, the amygdala, and it's fight or flight. It's just automatic, just reactive out of fear. But as you develop a loving adult through the practice of inner bonding, then those new neural pathways are available to you, and you start to respond totally differently to situations that before would create the reactivity, the anger, the giving yourself up, the defensiveness, the explaining, the people pleasing, the withdrawal, all of these reactive behaviors.
Yeah. So those new neural pathways then are really creating a new you, a new way of responding to the same old scenarios. Is that right? And
that's right.
It's differently.
That's right. And so many of my clients, I've heard from so many people that say, my brain is changing.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. And the brain, the research on neuroplasticity lets us know that we can learn at any age. It doesn't matter how old people are. They can learn at any age to retrain the brain, to develop those new neural pathways in the brain. And wow, I mean, it just makes so much difference in life. It's just amazing what happens when people stop being reactors and victims and just wanting to control everything. And they're able to drop in and take care of themselves and connect to that source of love and wisdom that's always here for us. And to know that we're never alone, that we're always being guided in our highest good. What a relief that is.
Indeed. Indeed. You've spoken to something that's resonating with my heart in the ancient spiritual practices that were passed on to me in feminine consciousness. Our blessing at the end of our ceremonies is, may you become a woman of your choosing.
Yes, that's right. And
So
we
I'm not living in that reactive state.
right. Yeah, we do get to do that. We do have the power when we're willing to shift our intention from controlling and avoiding and protecting against pain to loving ourselves. You know, if we look around the planet, we see that all of the problems of our planet are coming basically from self-abandonment, from a resistance to loving ourselves, because that self-abandonment creates such a deep hollowness and emptiness inside, which is what creates greed. And of course, greed is the basis of what's causing all the problems on our planet, the climate change, the racism, everything is about that greed, which comes from the self-abandonment. And so it's so important for people to learn to love themselves.
It's vital. It's really vital individually and planetarily for humanity. I'm also hearing a subtext here that this is a path of courage. Would you agree with that?
Yes, it does take courage. It takes courage to shift out of just trying to control everything. And I mean, it took me a lot of courage. Obviously, it took me a lot of courage to take the risk of loving myself and find out what was going to happen. And what happened was really tough. But, you know, like I said, I would do it again because my whole life opened up. I mean, I can't tell you the wonderful things that happened as a result of my learning to love myself, even though I had to go through so much pain of loss. I mean, finding out after my mother died that they had disinherited me after, I mean, I was the only child. They kept reassuring me, you don't have to worry about retirement. They had a couple of $1 million that they were going to be giving to me. So I didn't worry about retirement, cut it all off and without telling me. And so it was pretty devastating to me. I was really, really devastated. But I dealt with it. I dealt with it with loving myself and connecting to my guidance and came through that period of time so much better.
Oh, and I can hear it in your voice. I can hear the pain of that rejection, but also that you didn't let it squash your spirit.
Right.
You used it as a catalyst to really be in the spirit of transformation.
Yeah. And you know, that happens in life. Life hits us. You know, life can bring us to our knees, but when we learn how to connect with ourselves and how to connect with our higher guidance and how to bring love in, we can manage what life brings us with love.
Beautifully said. What would you recommend as a step that one of our viewers could take right now to go deeper into self-love and self-care?
Yeah. So one of the major ways that we abandon ourselves, we learn to do, is stay up in our head. You know, our feelings are in our body. And when we were young, we couldn't manage them. So we learned to disconnect from our body, to dissociate from our body and go up in our head. And when we're in our head, we're not aware of our feelings. We're cut off from them. So the first step of inner bonding is learning to take the big, long journey from your head to your heart and soul, and learning to get out of your head focus and into body focus, because your feelings are in your body. And those feelings, that's how our inner soul communicates so many things to us, is through our feelings. And so, like I said, there's so much information. So the practice would be to use your breath. I teach a mindfulness breathing of following your breath, down inside your body, scanning your body for any physical sensations, because our emotions often show up physically, like a tension or tightness somewhere, or emptiness somewhere, numbness. And so when people practice breathing, following their breath, and getting inside their body, they can start to reconnect with their feelings. That is the first step.
And is it fair for me to ask that there must be in that process some way that you help an individual feel safe with those feelings that feel so unsafe? Is that?
So then the next step is to breathe into your heart, open to learning about what you're telling yourself, how you're treating yourself, what you're doing or not doing, or what's happening between you and somebody else, and invite love and compassion into your heart. And then we do a dialogue, the third step, which is asking our feeling. Let's say you're feeling anxious or tense. You're saying, well, what am I telling you? How am I treating you? What am I doing or not doing that's causing this feeling? Or what's happening with another person or a situation that I need to pay attention to, that this feeling is letting me in on. And so we're doing an exploration of learning about what our feelings are telling us. And that information is so vital. And then we go a little deeper. I mean, this is the whole part of the inner bonding process, go a little deeper into why are we treating ourselves badly? Why are we judging ourselves? What's the false beliefs? And we go into learning about our false beliefs. And then in step 4, we open to what's the truth. We open with our higher guidance. What's the truth? What would be loving to ourselves? And then step 5, we take an action, a loving action. And then in step 6, we evaluate. And if we've in fact taken a loving action, we will feel a deep sense of relief. It's like if you have a baby who's crying, you don't just let the baby cry. That's not loving parenting. You take an action. You pick up the baby. You try and figure out, is the baby hungry? Diaper change, needs to be rocked. You take an action. And when the baby feels relieved, you've taken a loving action. Well, it's kind of like that on the inner level. We feel relief when we're loving ourselves, and we feel distress when we're abandoning ourselves. And so as people learn these steps, they become a natural way of being with oneself.
Yes, I can really hear that. And I'm also hearing in your description that connecting to spiritual guidance is part of understanding what your steps are. Is that right?
Oh, it's essential. You don't know what to do. You don't know whether a belief is true or false unless we go to a higher authority. And you don't know what's loving unless we go to a higher authority. And most people have no idea how to really have that two-way at-will connection with their divine source, which is what they learn in the inner bonding process.
Mm-hmm. This question is coming to me. I hope it's okay if I just throw something out into the space. What do you advise to a person who is feeling like and my audience is primarily female, but so she is not able to feel love, isn't sure if she knows what love is? Because you've talked about inviting love in. Is that part of connecting with higher self, or is there something else here what would you say to her?
Yeah, so love and compassion are not something we generate in our being. It's what spirit is. Spirit is love. Spirit is compassion. And so when we open to learning about loving ourselves, that's one of the keys, one of the major keys to connecting with spirit. That opens the heart. And when our heart is open, we start to feel the love and compassion coming inside from all around. I mean, it's here. We live in love. We live in peace and joy and compassion. It's what spirit is. And so when we learn to open to that, and it's about keeping our frequency high. I mean, spirit exists at a higher frequency than we do. And so we need to be able to raise our frequency, and the intention to learn is vital for that, as well as keeping our body clean. I mean, one of the things that's gone on in our culture is with all the sugar and processed food and junk and everything, it keeps the frequency very low and it cuts people off from their higher guidance. And this is one of the things that I began to learn because I was eating really well from the time I was in my early 20s, but I still couldn't connect until I understood about the intention to learn about love. And then I started to be able to develop that at-will divine connection. And I thought, oh, if I just teach my clients to open to learning about loving themselves, they'll connect. But they didn't. I mean, I did it fairly easily at that point. They couldn't. And I realized it was also because of the energy of the body, the frequency of the body. And people need to learn how to tune in to what their particular body needs, because we're not all the same. What I need for my high frequency, is likely not what you need for yours. And so that's a whole learning process in loving ourselves, is being able to tune in to what foods truly nurture us and create a high frequency for us. And that's one of the things that is so motivating for me, because I was very addicted to sugar. I was a total sugar addict. But when I started to realize that how it lowered my frequency now at this point, because I can't stand not to be connected. I mean, I just, it's not tolerable to me. And so I'm highly motivated not to put anything in my body that's going to lower my frequency. And I don't. And I don't need willpower at all, because I know what it's going to do if I eat junk.
Yeah.
And between what I've learned to do for my particular body and staying open to learning, I keep that channel open all the time.
Mm-hmm. You're also speaking to a place where in the beginning, so often in our sacred journeys, it's the pain that's pushing us along, right? I want out of this pain, and the shedding. We let go of a lot to be able to open to that beautiful pleasure, joy, bliss, happiness, whatever it is for us. And then there's a point where you're speaking to it so beautifully from your life, that then there's a place where the pleasure is the motivation.
Yeah, that's right. The pleasure, the joy of that connection is the motivation, and the health. Because I mean, as I said, I was a sickly kid and I got sick again. Since I've been doing this, since I've been eating the way my body needs, getting enough exercise and practicing in nirvana, my health is spectacular. And I'm 81 years old.
Oh my gosh, I could not have guessed that. You look fabulous.
And I like to tell people that because I want to inspire people to take care of themselves. They don't have to get old and sick. They don't have to. I don't have any of the illnesses that almost everybody my age has. I don't have any of them.
Oh my gosh. That is a testament to your journey and your work. Oh my goodness. I'm inspired, completely inspired. Oh, what a gift. What a gift you are giving to us, that we can find that kind of pleasure and happiness in our bodies and our health and our spirits.
Right.
Emotionally.
I mean, I've got a ton of energy. I see people half my age, a third my age, that can't do what I do because they're eating the junk food and they're abandoning themselves emotionally and they're not getting exercise. And so, of course, they have no energy. They have no vitality. They have no aliveness in their being.
Yeah, and you're quite right that every individual is different, and we can try a dozen different diets or methods, or we can do all of that, or we can tune in.
Right, we can tune in. Yeah, we can stop giving authority to other people. I don't give authority to anybody other than my higher guidance. That's my authority. My higher guidance defines who I am. I don't make other people responsible for defining whether I'm okay or not. That's up to my higher guidance. And through my loving adult, I've learned to see who I am in my soul and truly value that. And that also motivates me, because I mean, our souls are amazing. We each, our soul is a spark of the divine, and we are an individual expression of that. And when we get to know who we are, then we want to create a healthy body for our soul to live in. You see, so that's a very deep motivation when we learn who we really are.
Mm. Oh, perfectly said. I can't think of a better place to stop, to end for this moment than right there. So beautifully said. Oh, what a treat to get to know you a little bit. And I'm so glad that I get to introduce you to my tribe. And I know that all of you are going to enjoy getting to know Dr. Margaret Paul a little bit better. So there's a way that they can do that. You have a gift for them. Would you share that with them?
Yeah, so there's an ebook that will help people get started called The 4 Mistakes That Block Self-Love and Relationships. So I really suggest that people click the link and get that free ebook and read it. And that's going to really help you get going on this journey.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that gift. And I know that there are some wonderful people out there that are going to appreciate having access to it and getting to know you a little bit better and your teachings and your practices. So I would suggest everybody watching get to know Dr. Margaret Paul. She is an awesome healer and teacher and supporter of us in our sacred journeys. And what a delight to get to know you. Thank you so much for sharing this time.
And it's been a delight to spend time with you as well. Thank you so much.
Marvelous. Thank you all for being here today. And as always, if you'd like to receive my free gift, the Holding Guided Meditation in the Sacred Feminine, you can get that at the link below. And be sure to subscribe so we can stay in touch. Love you all, and I thank you so much for all you're doing for feminine consciousness on the planet today. See you next time.